Alright, so you should have seen the previous video on graphing transformations. It kind of just showed you how to do each type of transformation individually: vertical stretch, vertical shift, horizontal shift, and the two reflections. So we're going to look at a couple of examples here of multiple transformations, kind of putting them all together, okay, figuring out which one affects the x, the y, what do we do with them. Okay? So you should notice the same function that we used before, same kind of points over here. I'm going to call this f of x. Okay? So look at a couple kind of quick ones. Okay? So look at f of x plus 1 minus 2. So you want to kind of look at the sort of individually and see what each one does. Well, x plus 1, as we talked about, when we put an x in, it actually adds 1 to that x value. So it's actually going to, change that x value and shift the graph to the left 1. Okay? Because if you think about it, if I put negative 1 in for x, I'd be getting f of 0. So it'd be like plotting the same point as 0, but now it's plotting that 0 point over at negative 1. Okay? So again, it's going to do that opposite. So this piece is going to shift the points to the left 1. Okay? So I'm going to do that first. So I'm going to take this point, move it left 1, this point, left 1, this point, left 1, and this last point, left 1. So that would be the graph of f of x plus 1, or f of x plus 1. So then the next thing I'm going to do is minus 2. Notice that is outside of the function. So that's going to affect the y. That's sort of that k value in that final piece we had there. So it's going to shift the graph actually down 2. So this new point, which already moved left 1, is also going to move down 2. Let me grab a green one to kind of get that final resting spot. There it is. So this point's going to go down 2. This one's going down 2. And this one's going down 2. And there's your new graph. And again, think about how the black graph became the green one. Took the graph, shifted it left 1 because of the x plus 1 in parentheses, and then down 2 because of the minus 2. Okay. So what do my new points look like? Well, the x's went to the left 1, so negative 2 goes to negative 3, 0 goes to negative 1, 2 goes to 1, 4 goes to 3. Those are my new x's. And the y's went down 2, so 0 becomes negative 2, 2 becomes 0, 2 becomes 0, and 1 becomes negative 1. And you see those points. Here's negative 3, 1, 2, 3, down 2. There it is. Negative 1, 0, yes. 1, 0, yes. 1, 2, 3, down 1. There are those points graphed perfectly. Okay? All right. So let's look at another example. We'll look at kind of a tough one here. We got negative 2 f of x plus 3. Right? We're going to kind of think about what happens with this. So one of the things you want to think about is order. It doesn't matter. Okay? Well, we know in mathematics that it does matter. We have order of operations to kind of follow. So let's take this 0 point for a second and see what happens. Okay, when I plug in 0 to the equation, I get negative 2 times f of 0 plus 3. Well, the first thing it's going to do is tell me what f of 0 is. And 0 was the x value. So this graph did not change the x value at all, which makes sense because there's no change inside the parenthesis due to the x first. Well, f of 0 has a value of 2. Okay? So we're talking about this point. Haven't done anything to it yet. What's the negative 2 going to do to it? Well, it's going to do two things. One, the 2 is going to stretch it. It's going to multiply the y value by 2. So it's going to double this guy's height. Instead of at 2, it's going to be up at 4. And then we got the negative. The negative is a reflection. Remember, that reflects over the x-axis. So this point's not going to be up at 4, it's actually going to be down at negative 4. So basically what am I doing? I am pulling that graph up, flipping it down. Okay, so let's think about this. It's negative 2 times f of 2 was, or f of 0 was 2 plus 3. So here I am, there's my negative 4, but I still got one more thing. This plus 3 is a vertical shift. So now it's going to move this graph up 3. And so I get the point negative 1. Alright, so let's see what I put in. I put in 0 and I got out negative 1. So this point actually moves through a multitude of steps, through 3 transformations, ends up at negative 1. Okay, so let's review what it did. Didn't affect the x because there's nothing in parentheses. I doubled the height, made it go up to 4. The negative, flipped it down to negative 4. And then the plus 3 shifted it up. Okay? And that's the order that we want to kind of apply the function. So think about putting a point in, follow order operations, and figure out the transformation. Nothing to the x, so no horizontal shift. Doubling the y's, so the y's get doubled. Reflecting the y's, okay? And then adding 3 to it. Let's see how that, kind of relates over here. So when I put in 0, first thing I'm going to do is multiply really by negative 2. I could multiply by 2 and then flip it, but really what I'm doing to the y's, to f of x, is multiplying by negative 2. So when I take 2 and multiply it by negative 2, I get negative 4. And then lastly, I'm going to add 3 to that. So I'm going to take this negative 4 and add 3 to it, and that equals negative 1. So I get a new point, 0, negative 1, which is exactly what we said we were going to get there. Okay. So let's think about that again. What am I doing with my next point? Let's take this one. I'm going to double the height, and the height is 0 already. Can't double it. We're going to reflect it. It's on the x-axis, so it can't reflect over an axis that it's on, and then move it up 3. So this point's actually going to go up 1, 2, 3. The first 2 transformations actually didn't affect its value. Okay? Take a look at this point, which was the 2, 2 point. Again, we're going to double the y value, so it's going to go up to 4, reflect it, going to go down to negative 4, and then go back up 1, 2, 3. Which makes sense. This point should be at the exact same height as the other one was, because they both started at height of 2. Lastly, the 1, I'm going to double its height to get up to 2, flip it, reflect it, get it down to negative 2, and then go up 3. 1, 2, 3. And in a weird way, that point actually ends up on itself. But the graph, as you can notice, a little bit taller. It's been stretched out, and it's been flipped. Okay, so instead of going up, over, down, it was down, over, and back up. So I've stretched it out, made it a little bit taller, and then I've also reflected it. Okay. So again, there's a couple of different examples of ways to kind of do multiple transformations. You have lots of practice, hopefully that helps.